Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Colby Sharp. I am a 5th grade teacher in Michigan, and today I'm going to share with you the books that my students are reading. Are you ready? Let's go! My students are at special, and I said, before you guys go to special, let me have your book because I want to share with some of my friends the books that you're reading because they want to know, because we're always looking for great book recommendations. So every single one of my students that I have in my morning class gave me the book that they're reading before they headed to music. So let's start at the top of this pile and we'll work our way over to this pile. The first book is Little Shack. If you have not read this series, it's a great early chapter book. I've had a lot of kids read it. Shaquille O'Neal is the co-author with Theodore Taylor III. I believe there's 2, maybe 3 books in the series. Next up is Newsprints. This is not my book. I have not read this book, but my principal, Miss Haney, has a gigantic library in her office, and one of my students came down with this morning. Flora and Ulysses, the Newbery Medal-winning book by Kate DiCamillo. Kate DiCamillo is such a gift to readers. My daughter is in my class this year in the morning, and she is the one reading Flora and Ulysses. Next up is Olga, We're Out of Here. Super fun series, illustrated novel. Kids really dig this. Super popular. This is the second book in the series. Next up is Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Just look at that. Look at the love that this book has gotten over the years. It's not even diary anymore. It's Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Old school. One of my students is reading this. He's a huge fan of the series. He's going to try to reread all of them before Meltdown comes out next month. Wedgie and Gizmo. I have not read this series, but I have 2, maybe 3 students who are big fans. I believe there are 2 books in the series. And the kids who've read it really, really dig it. Dogman, probably one of the most popular series in the entire world right now. This is the first one, and I can't tell you how many students I have that have read all of them multiple times, but I'm pretty sure that at all times during the year, some kid in my class will be reading Dogman. Next up is Judy Moody. A lot of my students who are really trying to get into some chapter books and really struggling maybe a little bit with juggling lots of plot lines and lots of different characters. They're going back to some chapter books that they have had some success with in the past, and Judy Moody is a favorite. I think there might be another one in here. We'll see as we work through the pile. Next up is Saving Winslow, which 2 of my students are reading by Sharon Creech. It's about this amazing donkey. I keep calling it a goat when I'm asking these kids about it, and they correct me every time. Beautiful book. One of my students has already read this, book talked it, gave a great book talk. As you can see now, we have 2 students reading it. The student that book talked it loved Moo. It was his favorite book in 4th grade, and he was telling me about it. I'm like, I have her brand new book. I have Sharon's brand new book. So we devoured it, book talked it. The rest is history. Sarah Elby's Poison. Love seeing this being read today. I noticed the boy that was reading it made me really excited to see some of my students start to move into nonfiction. A crazy popular book last year in the class was Gordon Corman's Restart. It's been read by 2 students already this year. A 3rd is now reading. I actually saw her today. She was reading a different book. She was reading Big Nate. And I asked her about it. She goes, oh man, I'm just at it's a sad part, and I just need a little bit of break for a minute to kind of get back into my groove. That's such a smart kid brilliant. Like, that's just brilliant. Like, I'm reading something sad. I need a little break. I'll come back to it. And then I saw she was reading Restart a little bit later in the morning. Mighty Jack, a wonderful graphic novel, always popular with the kiddos. I just found this. This book was like lost. I had the first one in the series, but I couldn't find this one. But I found this one, and now it's like not a fight, but it's like everyone's like jockeying to be the next person to read it. And kids are really expected to read it in a day or less so that someone else can get it. Last 5th grade of Emerson Elementary, this beautiful novel in verse by Laura Chauvin just takes place in elementary school that's closing, and this is the last group that's going through, and the book is told in the poems from the 18 students in the class. I was pretty surprised by the kid who's reading it, but he's loving it, and he's talking about it all the time, and he's sharing with other kids, so I'm pretty sure this is going to be a pretty popular book this year with my awesome students. Next up, I'm Just No Good at Rhyming. If you haven't seen this book, it's hilarious. Kind of just funny and illustrated and poems and silliness. Little Shel Silverstein. It's illustrated by Lane Smith, written by Christopher Harris. I'm glad that a kid's reading it this early in the year because I'm sure he'll book talk it and the other kids will read it. And this student who's reading it has a lot of influence over other readers. So excited to see where that goes. Stack 1 is done. On to Stack 2. Jewel Parker Rhodes, Ghost Boy, which is just a beautiful book. One of the best books of 2018. Does a really amazing job looking at policemen shooting unarmed black men, and powerful read. It's intense, super intense. Excited to have conversations with my students around this book. Phenomenal story. Roscoe Riley, Catherine Applegate is extremely popular in our school, and 2 or 3 kids between my 58 students in the 2 classes are reading Roscoe Riley. It's just so fun. I love that Roscoe starts in timeout in every book, and then you kind of figure out how I ended up there. Roscoe Riley. Next up is Jocko Willink's Way of the Warrior Kid. This is a 2-book series. I call it the red one and the yellow one. This is the red one. Jocko is one of the baddest dudes on the planet. Navy SEAL, like one of the best Navies. Not just a Navy SEAL, like one of the best Navy SEALs. He wrote this book, and my kids are digging it. So, you never know when someone who writes a book who might not necessarily, be the person in the children's literature world, but the kids are digging it. They're really loving this book. All the kids who've read it have finished it and passed it on to someone else. Pax, another well-loved book. It's kind of fallen apart a little. I don't know if you can see that. Pax, all written by Sarah Pennypacker. Some illustrations by John Clausen. This beautiful story about a boy and his fox. Timeless, amazing. A book I would have loved as a kid. If this were a story, my daughter read this earlier this year. Book talked it to the class, and it's kind of been making its rounds since then. It's a great book. When this girl receives a note, what's her name? Hannah receives a note it's in her desk, and it just says, "No one likes you." And it's heartbreaking and sad, and it's just a beautiful story of this girl kind of trying to figure out who she is. And it builds to the reveal for who's leaving these notes, and it's shocking. And I thought it was shocking as an adult reader. The kids find it even more shocking. So you should definitely check out If This Were a Story by Beth Turley. Ruby Kid the Getaway. I love the bookmark here. Thanks for ruining the binding on my book. 5th grader. Getaway, book 12, book 13. I believe the 13th one is the one that's coming out, Meltdown, very soon. Runaway King. This girl's devouring it. She didn't read False Prince first, though. You gotta read False Prince first. Jennifer Nielsen's The Runaway King, the middle book in an amazing trilogy there. Jared Krasaska's Jedi Academy. Gotta love that they're using an origami Yoda bookmark for this. I'm really excited to see the final version of Jared's Hey Kiddo. But Jared is the second author of the Jedi Academy series. Jeffrey Brown took a class through with a few different books. And then when those kids were done with Jedi Academy, they switched author illustrators. Brilliant move. I think that's genius. And with this next group of kids, it's Jared Krasaska. Love this series. My arms are tired. All right, next up is Patina. Man, I had the girl who's reading Patina in 3rd grade, and she was a great reader, and she read all the same stuff. Like, most of the year she read all of the same stuff, and we were finally starting to get her to try some new things and push herself a little bit, and then this year she's just, like, on fire. She read Ghost, Jason Reynolds' Ghost, destroyed it, and said, I have to have the second book. Where's the second book? And now she's about 1/3 of the way through Patina. I always love seeing what they use for bookmarks. The last one, but not least, the giant full-color edition of the one and only Ivan, just to give you some perspective here of the size. The special collector's edition. I read I have a lot of the students, probably half or 2/3 of the students I had in 3rd grade, and I read them the one and only Ivan, and when one of my students who was in that class saw this giant illustrated novel, he decided he wanted to revisit Ivan, and who doesn't? It's a great book. I would love to know what books are popular with your students. Please let me know down in the comments below the books that they're reading, the books that they're falling in love with, the characters that are capturing their hearts. Have an awesome-tastic day, and happy, happy reading.